This is where you can see all the announcements that are currently being worked on. So these are still yet to be finalized here. Announcements waiting for release, which I've put in here, an embargoed announcement. So these are ones that have been set for release, but are yet to be released out to the market. And then at the bottom here, you can see the last 20 released announcements by your company. And this is also reflected on this tab here on the right. So they've been worked on, waiting for release, in the last 5 released announcements. And just as a feature as well, for example, if I wanted to look at this announcement that was set in an embargo, I could just click in here and see all the details, such as the title, attachment, under which company. Cool. Moving on to create an announcement, which I'll get back to. I'll just get a quick rundown of all the other features before that. This section in here, user resources. This is a great source of information, especially for newer map users. Some key documents that I could point out myself would be map data guide, just giving you a hand for when you need to enter data. Map user guide, just notes on the general interface and how it all works. Other documents that are quite useful, using different announcement types when releasing announcements is quite good. There is reporting dates calendar, especially handy for when you are releasing your half, full year annual reports, anything along those lines, just getting the correct dates. And also issuer data entry cheat sheet here is another good one that I can point out. I won't go on each and every one of them, but just pointing them out. Going up to here, this is how you can search for past released announcements. So you can filter by the number of results, announcement types, which I'll run through in a second, and a date from and to. You can also search from old announcement types. So these are not currently announcement types on map and shown on nzx.com, but were previously. So if there was a historic announcement that you think might have come under as a material change in accounting policy, you'd put that in there and search it up. Next, moving on to the user tab here. So Farhan will be covering a bit of user management in his presentation in the second half of the seminar, but I'll just give a brief rundown of all the different functions in here. So first, pretty straightforward, changing your password, enter current and enter in new. That will just get emailed to you. A change of company overview or performance. So this is what's shown on nzx.com. If you guys would like a change to that, then this is where you go through into here. Next is requesting new users, and they're requesting the deletion of current users. So for requesting a new user, you'd put in the email address of the account or person that you want to create in here with first and last name. And important to note, we have 2 different user types, so admin and restricted. Admin users can create and release announcements, whilst restricted users can only create, but will need permission from an admin, or will need an admin user to actually release an announcement for them. And similar to requesting a new user, but even easier, you can see here all the current users for, in this example, NZX. And if we wanted to delete someone, say if I wanted to delete Farhan, I'd just click this bin icon here, which I won't do. Cool. And you can see in here, show pending or approved user requests. This will just show the last 10 actioned user requests. So whenever you guys will send in a request to either add a new user or delete a current user, this will come through to us on our internal side of map, and we will always accept these requests for you. Cool. And then this last tab here is just showing your current company users, and you can also request for deletion in this section here. All right, so now moving on to how you can create an announcement. So straightforward, you'll go into new here, and what you'll see here, you'll be greeted with create an announcement headline, announcement text, all the different announcement types. The materiality flag here is this announcement price sensitive, and also the embargo function here. So for the sake of being thorough, I will go through and give sort of a brief description of what all these different announcement types mean. As mentioned before, we do have that document about using the different announcement types if you'd like to have more of an in-depth overview of each of the announcement types. And we can try to address any questions that you might have towards the end of the session. Cool. But starting off, we've got admin. So this could be anything relating to like a change of address, name change, or director change, or for issuers of equity securities, something along the lines of a buyback program, anything along those lines. Annual reports, pretty straightforward. I will point out early as well that you see there'll be annual report, full year, half year, and fund update, and they all have a blue tag on them. So this is because these announcements can't be embargoed because they'll automatically be marked as price sensitive. So if I were to do one that wasn't automatically marked as price sensitive, say an admin announcement type, you can see here, I'd be able to use the embargo function. So I could set it for release at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow. However, if I mark this announcement as material, won't be able to use the embargo function. So anything material will be released immediately to market. And also, as an important note, we at NZX Operations cannot advise on if an announcement is material or not. That is something that you as an individual company will have to decide upon. Cool. So moving on, auditors, this most commonly is just any change to your current auditors or anything in relation to that. Corporate action, this is for all standard issuer corporate actions, except for the offers of new securities or rights, which would fall under the offer announcement type. Fund update would be strictly for funds, and that is pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. General, so general is an interesting one. It would be, the best way to class general would be all other information not otherwise covered by a relevant announcement type. So if you feel like you have an announcement that you're going to release to market that you don't think would fall under anything, that's where general would come in. Other examples for using the general announcement type would be any basic shareholder communications, listing correspondence, or the announcement of key dates such as when you'll be releasing your half or full year results. Half year is also straightforward. I won't go into that. Meeting, notice and results of meeting, also quite straightforward. I've pretty much just explained that one. Offer, so this is for all matters relating to a new offer or the new issue of securities as part of an ongoing offer. So this category should be used for all announcements relating to the initial offer until this closes. And as I mentioned before, that would be the likes of, say, a rights offer, or if you're issuing new debt securities, anything along those lines. The RA, appointment of receivers, liquidators, statutory managers. We don't often see this, but if you believe that an announcement falls under this threshold, then you're more than welcome to use that. Similarly, with research, we don't see this announcement type used that often, but anything along the lines of a research report prepared for an issuer, maybe by an independent company, anything along those lines. SEC issue, securities on issue. This will be the change of any quoted or unquoted securities. Basically the allotment of all financial products, whether that's performance rights, ordinary shares, anything along those lines. Shinters or shareholder interests. So this will be any change in senior manager or directors' holdings of ordinary shares or change in relevant interest within a company. That would fall under this announcement type here. And then lastly, transaction, which would be any announcement relating to a transaction which an issuer is or may be party to. So perhaps a sale of an asset, sale of land, property, anything along those lines. All right, so moving on, I will now show you all the different data points and associated with doing a map announcement. And I'll point out this interesting section here. So I'll be using a full year announcement type here. I'll press create and this will send me into this part here on adding a security. So you're welcome to assign an announcement to a specific security, but we recommend that when you are releasing an announcement that you just associate it with your company as a whole rather than a particular instrument. So I'll be using NA. And as you can see here, this is the point where you'd be adding issuer data. And I will point out, depending on what your announcement type is. So say, for example, here I've used the full year. Map will automatically point out here that the following data points are likely to be required and will also show up in red down here. So in this instance, it'll be earnings data and a net tangible asset figure. So I'll go through each announcement type, data point entry as we go. So for an allotment, this is straightforward. You will be entering the date of the allotment or buyback. Usually it's 1 day prior to the day of announcement. You can also put it for whatever financial product it is. The reason for issue or buyback, whether that's a buyback, further issue, initial allotment, or part of a DRP savings scheme or an employee director share scheme. The number of financial products allotted or bought back, for example, we'll do 1,000 use ordinary shares issued. Total number of financial products in existence. Let's put that as 100,000. The issue or buyback price per share in dollars, $1. And also the currency here, which you can see is limited to these figures or these currencies. Cool. I will just go through, put that in here as a further issue. So you are welcome to put commas in here if that's easier for you. But yeah, and obviously there doesn't need to be any negative sign figure in here or brackets to indicate that it's a buyback. If it is a buyback, you'll just indicate on here the reason for the issue or buyback. Cool. And then you'll see down here, sometimes because what the data that I've entered is actually incorrect, you'll get a warning from MAP saying these figures differs from the expected figure. I'm just going to confirm in this case because we know that this is just for a test. Cool. Moving on, we have gender diversity data. So this is what equity issuers will be announcing with the release of an annual report. So this is reasonably straightforward. What you'll be entering in here is the company's balance date, which, for example, if your end of year is in September, so you have announcements coming out about your full year this month, then you just put in your balance date in here as 30th or end of September and the year 2023. And then the other points of entry here, do you have a diversity or inclusion policy, yes or no? And then number of male, female, or gender diverse directors and officers in here. Next, moving on to earnings data. So this would be associated with a half or full year report. So what you'd be entering in here is the current balance date. So say, for example, if you're releasing your full year this month, you'd enter in your balance date as end of September 2023, with the previous end of year date being the 30th of September 2022. A common mistake we see is that when people go to enter their half year results with their earnings data, they will put the previous end of year as the previous half year end of year date. which is actually incorrect. So say, for example, if we were to look at the half year results from this year, we would be putting in, I believe it would be the 31st of March. So we would keep the previous end of year date as the last end of financial year. Cool. And then similarly to the allotment data, the reporting currency is all the same. And the other figures in here that you'll need to enter is a total profit or loss attributable to holders for the period, shareholder funds, total equity, intangibles, inclusive of goodwill, patents and trademarks, software and deferred tax, and the total shares on issue at the balance date. So it's important to note in here that for all these figures, you'll have to enter the full number. So not in thousands or hundreds, anything like that. You're not required to enter any dollar signs. We just need the figure itself. And also, if one of these figures is negative, say, for example, you made a loss of $1,000, you'd put the negative sign, you wouldn't put brackets. All right. Moving on, we have key dates. So this is your annual general meeting, special shareholders meeting, or the release of half or full year results. So we'll select whatever event in here. Quite straightforward. For half and full year results, these are not required by the NZX to be released to market, but if you as an issuer decide to announce to the market when your half or full year results are coming out, this will need to be accompanied with an appropriate data entry. And on the other side of the coin, with annual and special shareholder meetings, what we'd recommend and what Farhan will actually be touching on in the second half of the session is that issuers enter their meeting data with their notice of meeting. And this is because details such as the time of the event or location of event could be subject to change up until the notice of meeting is released. And it also just saves us from updating the time and event if that is to be announced past when you've entered the data initially. Moving on, we've got a change to a current director or senior manager. So say, for example, we will use Emma. This is if they're changing a position within the company. So changing, for example, from maybe an executive director to an independent chair. We should have all the different director and executive titles in here. And this is also how you can put the end of a directorship as well. So with entering data for director changes, whether that be the end of a director's tenure or adding a new director or senior manager. So this is data that needs to be entered, only needs to be entered once or if an effective date is included in the attachment. If there is not an effective date announced, then there's no data entry required because you don't know the exact date on which a new director will start or end their tenureship. And then similar to changing a current director or senior manager, this will be adding a new director. So say, for example, I've put Mr. Bean in here as a past example. We'd have him start as a director and the effective date could be, for example, tomorrow. So it's also quite straightforward. Then moving on, another key data point, which we'd expect with a full year result, also a half year result, the net tangible asset figure. So this will be the same as earnings data if you are an equity issuer, where this applicable date will be your end of year. You'll have your currency in here, as mentioned before. And important to note that the NTA value is per share, not the total net tangible asset amount. Otherwise, that data will be skewed greatly. which is not great. But cool. So that's all the data points in there. If you are just releasing a, say for example, a general announcement with no data to declare, you can click this button here. By selecting this, you can confirm that this does not contain any actual data required under the following listing rules. Tick that and confirm. Cool. So before you release an announcement, this is pretty much a summary of what you've just entered. So you can see here, you'll be given the option, well, not the option, but you can change or edit any data entry that you've put in here. Also, anything to do with the announcement itself. So say, for example, the headline, announcement type, text, anything like that. This is also how you can transfer an announcement. So say, for example, a restricted user who can't actually release an announcement created this. He won't be able to, or they won't be able to release this announcement. So what an admin user would have to do is to click into this announcement, which would be in here being worked on, and they would have to transfer that announcement to themselves before pressing release. So before I hand over to Farhan, I'll also just mention adding attachments to an announcement. So all you'd do is go in here. This is going to be the title for your announcement. So we'll just put test. And then it'll be just a matter of choosing a PDF file from your computer. And then that is the process there of releasing an announcement. So as mentioned before, if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we can maybe circle around back to them at the end if we have time. But cool, thanks very much. There you go, Farhan.
All right, thank you, Liam. So back with me. Just wanted to share my screen for a moment. Right. See my screen? All right, sweet. So what we want to the end of this webinar is it's more than just releasing announcement. It's more than just make people less nervous to release announcement. It's also making the map users to follow the listing rules. So what are my slides here? We'll be talking about what will be the updates and mostly common issues in using map. Right. Sorry about that. So go to map updates. What has been happening this year? So I think everyone can see here when you're releasing announcement, there's telling that there's one part telling that it's the file size is going to be 20 megabytes, supposed to 10 megabytes from last year. So this one is going to be useful if you're releasing financial statements or offer documents. So yeah, it's going to be useful for now if there's going to be a big file size for the announcement. And then next update is here. So there's used to be admin and user type of users. So it can be quite confusing. So now we have changed from the user type to a restricted. So now we have admin type and also user type. So I'm sorry, admin type and restricted user type. So it's going to be more defined user type rather than having user. So I'm going to talk about this more later. All right, that will be all for map updates. Retraction process. So this is processes for announcement retraction process. So why do we do this? This is because if an announcement with error is released, and then so the system flow is everything that is announced will be going down the pipeline. So we can't amend what has been released. So let's say we have error, attachment error, or any typos, it's material, then we can't amend what's been posted. So what we do is we can retract, take it off the NZX.com, and then you have to release an amended announcement. So there is certain scenarios that we can retract the announcement. So first is material typos. So such errors can cause reputational damage or financial damage or change the meaning of the announcement. And also if you accidentally attach the incorrect attachment. So what do we do with that? What will be the steps? So us product operations will confirm the processes with instruction. So what the issuers will do is have to release an amended announcement and noting what differs from the original. And then once the amended announcement is released, we will retract the old announcement. Right, moving on to the next slide will be the example. So how do you announce how can we announce the amended announcement? So first one is the headline. Always put the amended on the headline. So it's going to be useful for the public. And then the announcement text down there, I just put down a few examples and a few brief explanation of the amendments. So let's say if the announcement is released with wrong as a typo, or maybe there's an omission page for the presentation or whatnot, and you have to put some brief explanation for that. And don't worry, because we always will send an email for the full instruction for announcing the amended announcement. All right, moving on. Going to common data omission. So this is going to be helpful for this. So, some announcements issuers have to enter data, but then you may accidentally miss the data. So these data are quite common to miss. Right here. First one is allotment data. So allotments, unquoted products do not need to enter data. So like performance or share rights, options, issuance, and unquoted warrants. So we put that as a rule of thumb there. So if the number of ordinary shares on the market do not change, then there's no data entry required. So let's say if you're announcing a capital change notice of rights or options or warrants that do not change the number of shares yet. Yeah, we know because shares can be vested shares or warrants that will be changed into shares, but it hasn't changed yet. If it still is warrant or still status as rights, and you don't have to enter the data yet. So moving on to the next one. Right, director data. I'm pretty sure Liam has shown you how to enter director data, but this is also quite common, the issuers to miss. So the first one is start date. So if the start date for director is announced within effective date, then data must be entered. And the other one would be quite crucial is the end date. So if an effective date is announced, then the data must be entered. So this is the end date is really quite common to miss, and you can actually change it to the new position, and you can put it as end of directorship or office is highlighted. And you can always put the effective date on in future, even if it hasn't happened today. Let's say 22nd of November, one director is elected, but then you knew the information like a few weeks ago. You can always, and if it's announced with effective date, you can always put the effective date beforehand and in future. Right. So the third one common data omission is key dates, meeting dates. And yeah, pretty sure Liam said it before. So This is the dates for the AGM or SSM. So normally once data has been entered information is unable to be overwritten with location and time. Meeting dates are usually announced with notice of meeting. So we prefer if the dates of AGM, SSM, or in general meetings to be entered when notice of meeting is announced, or when the time and the location is confirmed. So then you can add the data with date, location, and time at the same time. So if you put the date first, and then you have the location and time later, you can't enter it anymore. So we can amend it for you, but we prefer you to announce the meeting dates with when the notice of meeting is announced. All right, so that is the last common data emission. So moving on to map user management. Right, so this is going to be useful for managing the map users for your companies. Like I said before, this year we have admin and restricted as opposed to admin and user last time. It's a big difference here being an admin and restricted. So you can see the bullet points there. So first is an admin can release an announcement. Restricted, they can't release an announcement, but they can create, edit, and delete announcement. And the next one is take or transfer ownership of the announcement, and restricted user can't do it. And the other one is user management, which is the request and addition or deleting user in map. So and restricted can't action that. So only admins can do that. Right. This is to manage users. So this is when you want to add or delete users. So we'll be getting quite a few queries when you ask us to add or delete users, but actually you can do it. And also it is an NZX audit requirement for the issuers themselves, the company themselves, to delete and add on their end. So you can go to the user tab and then go down there, request new user or request new deletion. So once you add new user or you delete, you request to delete. So one of us will authorize the user deletion or addition. Right here is when you want to change from restricted to admin. So as I said before, admin restricted has restricted type of things that they can do. So let's say you want to change someone from restricted to admin. So this one here can only be actioned by admins. So let's say me, Farhan, I am a restricted. So Liam is an admin. So Liam has to add me. Use the same email address, and then just choose the admin type. So even though you have the email address, even though I have the email address for I'm using that for restricted, but then you can see that it will override the user type to admin. So then if I'm added as an admin with the same email, that will override my other, my restricted account. All right. So this is some basic stuff to reset password, because we got a few queries with this, but then it is quite a simple thing to do. And first is when you have maxed number of attempts. If you see that notification, you can always call us so we can reset your login attempts. So then we can log in back to the map. And the next one to reset password, and then always, if you've forgotten password, click the forgot password, and then you'll be given a reset token. So then you can enter your new password and you can be logging again. Easy. So, all right. This one here is number ideal number of users. So we recommend of at least 3 map users, including of 2 admin users. So this is crucial for management. So let's say if NZX is only 2 users, one is admin, Liam is an admin, and I'm unrestricted. Let's say Liam is away, but and NZX wants to release an announcement. I can create an announcement, but I can't release an announcement. So that will be one of the situation where you'll be needing more than 1 admin and at least 3 users in map. All right, and that'll be all for my slides. Hopefully that'll be useful for everyone. And now we're moving on to Q&A. It's got questions.
Cool. I see Danielle sent in a question. Why do we have to enter data when that data is already in the announcement document? Good question. So data entry into map is actually required under the listing rules. So it's the entry of data into map that pulls it into various systems, including what displays on nzx.com. Long term, we are looking to explore entering the data into map so that it creates certain forms for you, such as a capital change notice with an allotment of securities. But that would be something for the near future or far future, if you will. Martina, announcement retraction process. Is there a process in place to amend immaterial typos? So if an announcement has immaterial typos, we, depending on how many typos there are, in that instance, we wouldn't actually retract that announcement or even get you to send out an amended announcement. But that would be situational depending on the type of errors and the amount of typos, for example.
Yeah, just to add on Liam's point, if the announcement, if the typo has changed the meaning or probably potentially damage, will impose damage, so then we will consider retraction. Any more question there?
Cool. That looks to be all the questions that have come in through the chat. If you do have any more questions, feel free to give us an email on productoperations@nzx.com or my personal email, liam.heron@nzx.com. When I send you out that invite, you should have my email address there. Yeah, feel free if you have any follow-up questions to reach out and would be happy to provide some answers. And to answer Martina's question, we will send out a copy of the slides as well right after this. Cool. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day.